pub, basically, about 25 years ago. Being folk musicians, we spend quite a lot of time, or certainly used to spend quite a lot of time sitting in pubs playing music for fun. That's kind of what the folk scene is about, really, and that's certainly what we were both into at that point. So I happened to be working in Oxford for a week, and I'd heard there was a good session at one of the pubs in Oxford, so I went along, and it was great. But then Jon turned up, about an hour into the session, and just started playing these weird tunes. I've never heard anyone play melodeon like that before. And to be fair, no one really does play melodeon like Jon. And I was sort of singing a few songs with the fiddle, and at the end of it, we just exchanged phone numbers. And actually, I think we both sort of lost each other's phone numbers, but then I think one of us found the others about a few months afterwards. We got back in touch, and then and then I think we've both individually been asked by our sort of local folk clubs if we wanted to do a gig, and so we sort of invited the other. I invited Jon to come and play at my folk club, and he invited me to go play at his, and then and then having done that, we had to work out some material. So we did. So that's how it started. I definitely think it's quite cyclical. I've seen quite a few moments over the. I suppose I've been doing this for about 25 years as a performer, and there seems to be quite regular moments where everyone decides that folk music is the exciting new thing, and it's very trendy, and then that's very exciting for a few years, and then it sort of dies away, and people forget about folk music for a few more years, and then it kind of comes back. So I've kind of got used to that sense of it just sort of popping its head above the parapet every few years. I'd say apart from that, it's quite stable in terms of, because people inside the folk scene, so people involved in the sort of grassroots side of the folk scene, it's very much a sort of lifestyle. So people tend to be, lifers with it. So I definitely see a lot of the same people I was hanging out with in my 20s are still, I'm still seeing them at folk festivals because they're there with their Morris sides, or they're playing with their bands, or they're just taking their kids to the festival that we used to go to as young adults or whatever. So it feels pretty stable in that sense. And I suppose other than that, there's always great young performers coming through, so that's always exciting, seeing new people appear, and we're all getting older, but there are younger people coming along, so it's a very nice world to be a part of. As I say, it's kind of a way of life. So I see it as quite distinct from performing. To be honest, I see performing as a thing I do. It's a job which I love, and it's I care about it a lot. But then to unwind, I'll go and play music in the pub. Which doesn't sound that unusual, but actually it's pretty weird for classical musicians and jazz musicians and pop musicians don't tend to do that. They tend to play music on stage and then do something else to unwind. So the grassroots thing for me is as much about hanging out with people. I've recently joined the Morris Size, which I've not done before, but that's very much a social, going to the pub sort of a thing. In terms of the grassroots venues, I think that's really important for, I suppose, the way that the performance side of things interfaces with the social. So it's sort of like the grassroots venues are an intermediary between the purely music and the more sort of entertainment industry aspects of it. And it's like the grassroots venues are lovely because they sort of feel that they can really build a community of audience, and they can have lots of community sort of engagement, but it's also giving the platform to performers, particularly I guess young performers, to coming along to earn money and to perform professionally and to get that sort of experience. So I guess for me, I love going between different types of venues, so going off at Mellorhead Hall, playing Roll Out Hall, and then coming to a small grassroots venue with a completely different vibe. It's that variety is endlessly sort of bewitching. I think my favourite venue I've ever played is the Roundhouse, which I've only ever played once. So I don't know if that's because that particular gig was amazing, or whether if I played it lots of times, it would lose its mystique. I don't know, but that's always the one I think of. In terms of smaller venues, I don't know. They're also different. I suppose what I like is that variety. I like going from playing in somewhere sort of magnificent and beautiful like Minster, and with that grassroots sense, but also it's an amazing building, so it's and then to go to playing in a sort of basement, sort of pub basement venue kind of thing, I really like all that variety, I guess. Yeah. I didn't have violin lessons as a kid, no, but I did have guitar lessons as a kid. So, in a sense, guitar is my first instrument. I do play guitar on stage, but I mainly play fiddle in Spiers and Boden. And I essentially, as a teenager, I got really into folk music. But I've been used to being the lead guitarist in a band. And so if you want to play folk music and you want to be the equivalent of the lead guitarist, you have to learn the fiddle. That's the works. So I sort of taught. I taught myself, and then I did go and get some lessons from my school teacher for a couple of years, and then I. Which was great, but actually that didn't really help me with the folk music stuff. It sort of it was almost a bit of a sideline. It took me off down a different direction, because I was trying to do classical technique, and actually classical technique is great, but it doesn't necessarily help you with folk technique. So it wasn't really then until I went to university and discovered a really good folk session on a Monday night with sort of Irish tune players that I just really started to try and play folk music again on the fiddle, and so I guess I kind of taught myself. For me, guitar is an accompaniment instrument, and it's I know not for everyone, but the way I play it is an accompaniment instrument, and whereas fiddle is like the main act, So that for me, it's more exciting playing fiddle. It's also scarier. So I'm very comfortable about playing the guitar because it's a very sort of warm embrace of as a singer. If you've got a guitar underneath you, it's very comfortable. Whereas accompanying yourself on the fiddle, which I also do with Jon, I'm mostly singing whilst playing the fiddle, and that's quite difficult and quite high risk, but it's also because of that it's kind of more exciting.